Zawadi was a quiet girl who lived in the hills of Mbale. She didn't talk much, but her eyes always carried big dreams. Every morning, she walked to school with old books pressed to her chest, hoping that one day her life would change. She was smart, kind, and full of hope, but she also carried a secret. She liked Otieno, the boy next door. He was handsome, funny, and everyone loved him. When he smiled at her, her heart would race. He made her feel seen, like maybe she mattered. But one day, everything broke. Otieno betrayed her, not by accident, but on purpose. He made her believe he cared. Then, in front of his laughing friends, he called her names, mocked her clothes, and told her she was nothing. Zawadi stood frozen, her eyes filled with silent tears. She didn't fight back. She just walked away, each step heavy with pain. That was the day she learned that love could hurt deeper than any wound. It was supposed to be a fun school trip. The sun was out, and the students laughed as they walked along the riverbank. Zawadi was quiet, as always, keeping to herself. She still hadn't healed from Otieno's cruel words, but she stayed strong, hoping the day would pass without trouble. But trouble came anyway, wearing the same smile that once made her heart skip. Otieno and his friends called her over, pretending to be friendly. She hesitated, but didn't want to seem rude. As she stepped closer, one of them shoved her hard. She fell into the cold, muddy river with a scream. Her uniform soaked instantly. Her bag floated away. She cried for help, but no one came. They just stood there, laughing. Otieno pulled out his phone and started recording. So did the others. Her pain became their joke. By the time she climbed out, shivering and dripping, the video had already been shared in group chats. It went from one phone to another like wildfire. In school, they whispered. In town, they stared. Everyone had seen her lowest moment. She didn't speak. She didn't cry again. Not in public. But inside, something broke. Not just her heart, but her trust in people. What hurt the most wasn't the fall or the freezing water. It was knowing that the boy she once loved had turned her pain into entertainment. That evening, Zawadi came home wet, dirty, and broken. Her eyes were empty, her voice silent. She didn't need to explain. Her mother saw everything in her daughter's face. Without a word, Mama wrapped her in a warm kaitengi cloth and held her close, like she was still a little girl. Zawadi shook in her arms, not from the cold, but from something deeper, shame, hurt, and heartbreak. Her mother didn't ask what happened. She didn't need the details. Instead, she whispered prayers, one after another, her voice soft but strong. "My child, pain is not the end," she said. "Pain has a purpose. Even storms pass, and when they do, the sky is clearer than before." She wiped Zawadi's tears with her rough, hard-working hands. "People may laugh today, but destiny never forgets. One day, they'll see you rise." Zawadi didn't speak, but in her heart, she felt a tiny spark. Like Mama's words planted something inside her. Her mother rocked her gently and kept praying, her voice steady through the night. She asked God to heal her daughter's heart, to give her strength, and to light a path forward, even if it was hard. And as the night grew quiet, Zawadi finally closed her eyes, not because the pain was gone, but because for the first time in days, she felt safe. Her mother's prayer became her shield, and deep down, a promise. While others forgot, Zawadi remembered everything: the laughter, the river, the video, the silence that followed. But instead of letting it break her, she used it to build herself. While Otieno dropped out of school and spent his nights partying, drinking, and showing off, Zawadi was quietly rewriting her story. She worked 2 small jobs after school, cleaning houses and selling vegetables at the market. Her hands were always tired, her feet always aching, but she never complained. Every coin she saved went into a jar marked college. At night, when the village lights went out, she lit a small candle and studied in the dim glow. Her books were worn, her notes full of scribbles, but her mind was sharp. Every word she read, every page she turned was powered by the memory of those who once mocked her. She didn't speak about revenge. She didn't wish anyone harm. She just focused, quietly, fiercely. No one clapped for her. No one offered help, but that was okay. Zawadi had learned that strength doesn't need noise. It grows in silence. While others forgot her name, she was busy carving it into her future, slowly, painfully, but with purpose. She didn't rise to prove them wrong. She rose because she knew she was more than their laughter, more than their cruelty. She wasn't chasing revenge. She was chasing something bigger, her freedom, her future, her power. Zawadi never stopped dreaming, even when the world gave her every reason to quit. She studied harder than anyone, slept less than most, and worked through every weekend. And finally, after years of sacrifice, she stood on stage in her worn-out shoes and old dress, and graduated top of her class. No one clapped louder than her mother. That day, Zawadi didn't cry. She just smiled, a soft, quiet smile, because this victory was personal. Her hard work earned her a full scholarship to a university in South Africa. She packed her small bag, hugged her mother tight, and boarded her first ever flight. No fancy luggage, no big send-off, just hope, fire, and the silent promise she had made to herself years ago, to rise no matter what. In South Africa, life wasn't easy. She worked as a housemaid during the day and studied at night. Some looked down on her, but she didn't care. She cleaned floors with the same focus she used to solve tech problems. Slowly, step by step, she built her skills. She learned to code, started designing apps, and eventually launched her own tech company. People began to notice the girl who was once laughed at, thrown into a river, and forgotten, was now a CEO, standing on global stages. But she didn't shout her success. She didn't seek revenge. Her silence had become her power. Her wins were loud enough, and deep down, Zawadi knew this was just the beginning. Years had passed, but Mbale Hill hadn't changed much. The same dusty roads, the same tiny shops, the same whispers floating through the air. But that day, something was different. A sleek black car rolled slowly into the village, shiny like nothing they had ever seen. People stopped what they were doing. Children pointed, women stared, men murmured. Then the door opened, and out stepped Zawadi. She wore a simple, soft cotton dress. No jewelry, no makeup, no need to prove anything. But her presence spoke louder than gold. Her skin glowed, her eyes were calm. Her silence still carried weight, but now it felt powerful, not painful. Otieno was nearby, leaning against a wall with some old friends. He looked tired, older than his age, with empty eyes and worn-out clothes. He watched the car, curious like everyone else, but he didn't recognize her, not at first. Zawadi walked past him slowly, gracefully, as if the ground itself had changed for her steps. Then, just for a moment, she turned and smiled. A small smile, gentle, unbothered. That's when it hit him. His heart dropped. His mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. He had once laughed at her pain. Now he couldn't even speak in her presence. And Zawadi, she didn't stop. She didn't look back. She just walked on, as if she had never been broken, as if that river, those laughs and all those scars had only made her shine brighter. On the same hill where Zawadi once cried alone, where she had walked with torn shoes and heavy books, now stood a beautiful white mansion. It didn't just shine with bricks and paint. It glowed with love, with victory, with everything they once thought she'd never have. She didn't build it to show off. She built it for her mother, the woman who had held her through her darkest nights, the woman who had prayed when all hope felt lost. The mansion had big windows, a red roof, and a garden full of flowers Mama loved. Inside, every room was filled with warmth, not just from expensive things, but from peace. For the first time, Mama could rest. No more broken stools, no more leaking roofs, just comfort, joy, and pride. Outside the gates, the village children often stopped to stare, not with envy, but with hope. They whispered her name with respect, not gossip. "That's Zawadi's house," they'd say. "She used to be just like us." Now they walked past her gates with their heads high, dreaming bigger than before. Zawadi would sometimes sit on the balcony, watching the same paths she used to take to school. She didn't cry anymore, not because the pain was forgotten, but because she had turned it into something beautiful. That hill, once a place of shame, was now a place of healing. And the mansion, it wasn't just a house, it was a promise that broken girls can still build castles. Otieno used to be the boy everyone loved. Loud laugh, smooth words, full of charm. But charm doesn't last when there's nothing real underneath. Years passed, and the smiles faded. The friends disappeared. He never finished school. He wasted his days drinking, smoking, chasing shadows of the boy he used to be. Nights were cold. Mornings were worse. No job, no purpose. Just regret eating him slowly from the inside. One day, his stomach growled louder than his pride. He hadn't eaten properly in days. His clothes hung loose on his tired body. His eyes were hollow, lost. Wandering through Mbale Hill, he spotted a large mansion shining in the sun. He didn't know whose it was. He just saw the garden, the clean gates, the smell of food drifting in the air, and he followed it like a man chasing a miracle. Slowly, with dust on his feet and shame in his heart, he walked toward the gate. His hands trembled as he knocked. The gatekeeper looked at him with surprise, then disappeared inside. Otieno waited, head down, breathing heavy. When the door opened and Zawadi stepped out, he froze. He hadn't come to see her. He didn't even know she lived there, but life had brought him right to her doorstep. The same girl he had laughed at, pushed and shamed. Now she stood above him, strong, silent, everything he had lost. And for the first time, Otieno felt something deeper than hunger. He felt the weight of his choices. When Otieno saw Zawadi standing before him, something inside him broke completely. He dropped to his knees, tears falling down his dusty face. "Forgive me," he begged, his voice shaking with pain and regret. He wasn't proud, not anymore. The boy who once laughed at her suffering was now begging for mercy. Zawadi looked at him quietly. She didn't say a word. Her eyes held no anger, no hate, just calm and strength. She reached down and helped him up gently. Then, without hesitation, she invited him inside. She didn't scold him or remind him of the past. Instead, she gave him food, warm, fresh, and filling. As he ate, she spoke softly. "You have to rebuild yourself. This is your chance. Don't waste it." Otieno listened, overwhelmed by her kindness. He had expected punishment or anger, but what he found was grace. It was a kind of power he had never understood before. The power to forgive, to heal, to give hope, even when it seemed impossible. Zawadi didn't ask him to change overnight. She only asked that he try, that he learn from his mistakes and find a better path. And in that moment, Otieno realized that forgiveness wasn't weakness. It was the strongest gift she could give. Her silence spoke louder than words. The past was behind them, but the future was still theirs to build. Zawadi's voice now travels far beyond Mbale Hill. Across Africa, girls listen when she speaks, their eyes shining with hope. On big stages, under bright lights, she shares her story, not to make people feel sorry for her, but to show them strength. "They laughed when I cried," she says, her voice steady and clear. "They tried to break me, but I made a choice. I chose not to become like them. I chose to rise without hate, and that's why I won." Her words carry power, the power to heal, to inspire, to change lives. She tells girls that pain doesn't have to destroy them, that they can turn their hardest moments into their greatest victories. Zawadi doesn't hide her scars. Instead, she shows how those scars made her stronger. Her story is full circle, from silent tears to loud triumph, from being pushed down to standing tall. She proves that the real victory isn't revenge or anger. It's rising above hate with grace and courage. Zawadi is not just a survivor. She is a leader, a light, and a voice for every girl who dreams of something better. And as she speaks, the world listens, because she rose without hate, and that makes all the difference.